Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Ecolodge Design Masterclass. My name is Elisa Maceratini. I'm an architect, urban planner, and landscape designer, and I had the great opportunity to work during the past 15 years as international consultant on more than 30 projects across Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, and the Middle East, including sustainable tourism development projects funded by the World Bank in Sierra Leone, Sri Lanka, and Jordan. So today, I would like share my experience on Ecolodge design, discussing with you about Ecolodge definition and principle, key elements of Ecolodge design, looking at a selection of best practices, some recommendation and key references. So the Ecolodge definition is strictly connected with the definition of ecotourism and ecotourism principle that we know very well and are summarized as minimize physical, social, behavioral, and psychological impacts, build environmental and cultural awareness and respect, provide positive experiences for both visitor and hosts, provide direct financial benefit for conservation, and generate financial benefit for both local people and private industry. So it's very important to understand that the Ecolodge is a central feature of the overall ecotourism experience and must reflect those principles within both the design as the day-to-day operation and services of the structure. We know that the Ecolodge is just one type of ecotourism accommodation because we have other options. We have Ecolodge and Eco Resort, we have Green Hotel and Eco Hotel, we have homestays. Green Hotel and Eco Hotel are mainly located in urban areas, while homestays are local families hosting tourists in their home. And the Ecolodge, it's different because it's designed specifically to have minimal impact on the surrounding environment and normally is located in a pristine, fragile ecosystem like natural reserve. The first definition of Ecolodge start when in the 1994 in Virgin Island was held the first International Ecolodge Forum. There, the discussion about accommodation defined the Ecolodge as a tourism accommodation that responds to the highest standard of sustainable architecture, site planning and design, as well, and this is very important, incorporate all appropriate green management practices and procedure in every aspect of its operation and tourism services. Then, an international guidelines on Ecolodge have been developed. So there is this important handbook of the beginning of this century that define the Ecolodge as an accommodation facilities that satisfy at least 5 of the criteria that we will see, 3 of which must embody the main principle of ecotourism. So the Ecolodge definition underline the importance of the main principle of ecotourism in architecture and design, that are conservation of neighboring lands, benefit to local communities, and interpretation to both local population and guests. So what are the criteria? The criteria are, first, help in the conservation of the surrounding flora and fauna, endeavors to work together with the local community, offers interpretive programs to educate both its employees and tourists about the surrounding natural and cultural environments, use alternative, sustainable means of water acquisition and reduce consumption, provides for careful handling and disposal of solid waste and sewage, meets its energy needs through passive design and renewable energy sources, use traditional building technologies, has minimal impact on the natural surrounding during construction and operation, fits into its specific physical and cultural context through careful attention to form, landscaping in color, as well as the use of vernacular architecture, and contribute to sustainable local community development through education programs and research. So how to apply the Ecolodge design at the end? By respecting the ecotourism principle, and so respecting the at least five of the elements we just discussed. Ecolodge design should first, as we know, be part of an Ecolodge project that should create jobs and promote sustainable development of the area and the community involved. So the architectural design should enable the principle of promoting sustainable development, promoting community engagement and community inclusion, and the principle of adaptation to climate change, adaptation to the context, reduction, reuse, repair, recycling, and energy conservation. The main objective at the end is to balance the human needs of the visitors and the natural systems, and to create so a built environment that lives and exists and develops in harmony with the natural one. There are some key factors that we have to consider when we are planning to design an ecolodge. First, the stakeholder engagement. Then the existing master plans, regulation and standard to be in coherence with all the normative systems, the context and aesthetics, the building technology, the material and the construction techniques, the energy use and conservation system, water conservation and management, and waste management. You see, those principles, those factors are related to the principle of ecotourism and the principle described in the Ecolodge definition. So stakeholder engagement, what it means? It means that we have to start by informing and involving the local communities in the Ecolodge development since the beginning. It's not only to involve them on the construction phase or then as an employee. Is involved then since the beginning, discussing about the project, discussing about the perfect location and the needs of the community. What are some ways of engagement? There is a plan called Community Relation Initiative Plan, that it's a program that the society, the company, the developers can start to develop. It's a plan, a real plan to develop with the community, so to establish the different competencies and the different responsibilities on the planning, the development, the construction, the operation, and the management of the ecolodge. Stakeholder meetings are crucial since the beginning with the leaders of the communities and the administration. Within, we consider at least the 20 kilometers surrounding of the site, and the identification of local labor and skill set and local contractor suppliers to be engaged. So engage all the stakeholders is the first fundamental factor and step for a sustainable design. Then it's very important to understand the regulatory framework. So it's not allowed to design an ecolodge without thinking in the big scale. So master plans, regulation and standards are key to understand the site and to have a sustainable design project. So the key elements to consider are tourism development plans, so to be in coherence with the tourism development zone, for example, and the strategies for the development of the area, a land use master plan, so to be sure that the area is for tourism use and for conservation of the, so it's important for having this strong connection with the regulatory context, planning projects for the surrounding areas, so to understand if there are other projects I don't know, for example, if there is the projects of development of an industry close to the site we have selected, maybe it's not the good site, or construction standard. So to be sure that our projects, our architectural projects, will be in line with the construction standard of the area or to be defined. Context and aesthetic. This is a really important factor because as you see, this photograph for me is very interesting. The Kagakama Nature Reserve, Ecolodge, it's a very good example because it's realized inside the site and is something invisible. You can't understand that this is there. So it's the same thing with the environment. It's really connected with the space, with the reserve. So the Ecolodge belong to environment in which is located. It's very important. So to start with a deep analysis of the natural and cultural characteristic of the site, not only of the community, but also of the environmental context and natural heritage. So there is a very interesting phrase in the International Ecology Guidelines saying, try to have your ecolodge look as if it is sprouted like a plant or emergent from the landscape like a geological formation. And it's a very interesting tips. What are the key actions so we have to consider when you design in coherence with the context and aesthetic? First of all, start with a comprehensive site selection process. It means doing, for example, a selection site selection metrics, so to understand the suitability of the area. So what is for site 1, site 2, site 3, understanding the characteristic of the adjacent community, the proximity to the highway, so to understand the accessibility, access to shoreline, if there are attractive views, if there are on-site natural resources, multi-community potential, and so for the suitability of the place, the capability of the site, so the size of site is enough, is too small, is too big, is accessible, if there is a potential for expansion, the ownership is public, is private, or environmental impact. So there is an irreversible loss. If I will put my ecolodge there, there are rare spaces there, there is a landscape alteration or disturbance for the sauna, and then you can, this is a tool, the site selection matrix. But it's important to understand that we have to start with a comprehensive site selection process. Then do a site inventory and analysis, looking at topography, geology, climate, heritage, and a lot of more elements to have a deep understanding of the site. Doing an environmental impact assessment, this is key to have a positive and not a negative impact. Of course, this is the objective, also the Ecolodge on the site, to study the access and accessibility. You look in this small sketch, the site needs to be accessible from tourists. So for example, by train, by boat, by airport, what are the distance? Screening and integration with the surrounding landscape. So understanding how to screen and to integrate our ecolodge with the area. Do a layout and orientation that, for example, is positive for passive ventilation. Understand the natural cultural resource protection measure. Enhance landscape and biodiversity by planting local species and planning interpretive trails, use of native landscape vegetation and trees, also to provide shade and reduce heat, and consider always minimal site disturbance and non-obtrusive lighting. So then building technology, material and construction are also key to have this integration, to achieve the integration with the context, and to be coherent and sympathetic with the physical and cultural environment. So we have to prefer natural materials that are natural found in the area or derived from natural resources. We need to have a low energy cost associated with the production of the building material, and it will be wonderful if they can be locally produced, so to require little energy for transport. The building techniques also should use local materials and traditional construction technique, so it will be easier to contract local laborers and to engage the local community in the construction phase, and also it will be possible to enhance the local traditions or adapt tradition tools to meet the modern standards required. But the important thing is to create a low impact. So it's preferable to use manual labor or use low energy tools instead of machines. And it's interesting also to think on the integration of site supervision, emphasizing resource protection, because it's always also an educational project. And it's important to sensitize also the workers on the importance of the impact of the construction. So there are different kinds of natural material tools that are usually used on Ecolodge, and it will be interesting and important to construct with stone, bamboo, wood, clay, thatch, rock, reed, depending on the local context. There are some examples of construction in wood in Ghana, the Meet Me There Ecolodge that we will see, or bamboo using for the external area in Bali, the reed used also for internal furniture, and for the roof, the rock also used in the Kagakama Nature Reserve in South Africa, so to integrate with the rock context, and the raw earth as used in the Anta-Ecolodge in Ghana. So then consider other important factor: energy use and conservation. So there are a lot of alternative and low impact source of energy that you can consider when designing Ecolodge: solar, photovoltaic, wind, passive design, natural gas, geothermal, wood combustion, hybrid system, low energy lighting. And you have to consider always, as a principle, maximizing natural ventilation, heating and lighting, and introduce guest energy use awareness program. So to give also the example for the daily life also of visitors. Some example of use of solar panels and photovoltaic energy, for example, in the Fainan Ecolodge in Jordan, and passive design and ventilation can rely on passive system, on a natural mechanism of conduction, convection, radiation, and evaporation, and use so little or no energy. And this is very important to consider passive designs since the site selection and since the design of the layout. So to enjoy and use winter winds and summer winds or passive system energy. Another key element is water conservation and management. What it means? It means to consider all the use that you can have of water and all the application you can do of, for example, the reuse of water for planting local vegetable, or also harvesting for other use. So water treatment, water reuse, water conservation, and water harvesting Also, water management and grey water treatment and recycling are key elements to consider in the design phase of your ecolodge, so to enhance the environmental value of the structure. Then the waste. So other important factor that has to be planned since the beginning through a waste management plan is the reuse the waste and or recycling of waste of construction phase, but also the solid waste and wastewater, of course, of the operational phase of the ecolodge. What are the key tools and strategy? So as we said, the to define the waste management plan since the beginning, to think on how to reduce packaging measure, for example, no single-use elements, introduce kitchen and landscape composting, introduce separation and recycling program for guests through also some illustrative flyers to educate guests. Towel and nylon reuse, prepare cleaners and pesticides on site, and recycle food waste and animal feed. So, for example, to use it for composting and for other use for agriculture. So then some selection of best practice. So to see the application of the principle and the criteria we already saw. Here we have just a few examples of ecolodge, best practice of ecolodge in Africa. So we selected Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, and South Africa, and other parts of the world, like Bali, Costa Rica, and Jordan, where it started. Costa Rica was, for example, one of the first countries with Ecuador starting the ecolodge construction. So it's interesting also to see other parts of the world. So now you are in Gambia, and so that's it will be very interesting maybe to visit the Footstep Ecolodge, that it's an award-winning ecolodge on the beach side of Gunjur village, and it's really interesting because it dates almost 24 years, and it's an experimentation. I think it's bottom-up projects, if we can see, we can say, because they experimented different criteria we just discussed. So you can see the use of local materials, of mud, the integration with the context, the engagement of local people during construction, the engagement of people also in the realization, local people and artisan for the construction of the furniture and interiors. The use also of solar panel and passive design for energy, and compost toilet and wastewater reuse for the toilets. So the Footstep Ecolodge could be a very interesting example for you to understand all the concept, the majority of the concept applied on architecture. Also in Gambia, we have the Nemasu Ecolodge, that's a boutique hotel located always in the coast, in the beach of the southern Gambia. Here also it's interesting the use of the traditional techniques and the use of solar energy, the materials selected, and something innovative, the banana flash toilets and solar hot water for the showers. Always the interiors with the use of local materials and local furniture. In Ghana, Meet Me There Ecolodge, always an interesting experimentation of a stilt house, and this is another interesting element to consider, the distance between the structure and the soil or the water, also for health, to protect visitor from insect and to protect them, so for also the possible inundation or natural catastrophes. So this is the Ghana mit der Ecolodge. Always in Ghana, the Misu tree house. This is a very interesting example of stilt houses, completely integrated in the area. Guinea-Bissau, Angurman Ecolodge is another kind of Ecolodge because it's in the island. Interpretive panels from the beginning. This is another important element to consider. And the use always of local techniques and connections with the environment. The Guinea-Bissau Ponta Canchaca. It's another interesting example of integration with the context, the use of natural materials and passive energy. And here we are in the South Africa, the Kagakama Nature Reserve. I think it's a very, very interesting example of integration with the landscape through architecture because it's designed with rock. So it's very difficult to see the difference between the rocks of the reserve and the architecture. The sense of place that is created from this ecolodge is very strong. So the visitor feel inside the rock, inside the nature reserve. The use also of furniture, it's very light and very coherent with the context. And Sari Mumbwana Ecolodge in Bali, also there are a lot of interesting experience in Bali, in Asia, with the bamboo construction and inside the reserve, and the use also of a pool with a natural pool without using any kind of chemical, and so giving also the experience like a spa to the visitor for relaxing with an full immersion in nature, using also water as element of architecture and integrating local planting and furniture with the external balcony, for example, are an important element of Ecolodge. So to maintain this connection with nature, because we know that in ecotourism, the observation is a very important part of the tourist experience. The La Parillos Ecolodge in Costa Rica also is a very interesting experience because it's completely immersed in the vegetation to protect the vegetation itself. And I think it's a very interesting example also for the trails, the walking trails they realized, so to connect the ecolodge with the surrounding area and the interpretive panels they developed. The high level of interior design and furniture is very important. The study of lighting, natural lighting, and night lighting. And the Feynine Ecolodge, that it's another important example of respect of almost all the principle. I had the chance to visit it, and if you have the opportunity to go to Jordan, please go to the Dana Reserve and visit the Feynine Ecolodge. As you see, we are in another type of climate. We are in the desert, and here the architecture, color, and form, as it's very important for the architecture design, is completely immersed and coherent with the landscape. So the use of the yellow and red colors in coherence with the context, it's very powerful. The use of mud, these are the external space. Then they applied, it's completely independent from the energy and waste point of view, so solar panel, and use also of a candle and lighting, soft lighting for the night. Passive design, you see the windows are protected also with these elements and stone, so to create passive ventilation, the use of bottle of water of the Feinan Ecolodge, so to avoid the single-use plastic, a very well-organized system of and also the interpretive panels, so to create a connection with the Dana Reserve and an interpretive center inside the same Ecolodge. And just to conclude, for give you some example also from Europe, where I'm from my country, Italy, just to share with you some current trend, which is called glamping. Glamping is a new experience that started in the US and then came 4 or 5 years ago in Spain, and then now it's very strong in Italy, and it's a luxury tent that's a mix from glamour and camping, and that's another kind of experience that it's now very, very popular. And I think it's something also to think, because the interesting thing is that it's very easy to construct and easy to destroy. So the impact, the environmental impact of glamping, it's very low. And the experience, the creation of the connection with nature and the sense of place is very strong. So to conclude, some recommendation for the design of Ecolodge from our experience. So design to maintain, restore and enhance the natural ecosystem, engage the community from the beginning and through the process, define always the easiest, fastest, most economical and least destructive way in which your ecology must be built since the design stage. Find all available local natural resource and plan for long-term economic return. This is also a recommendation given by the international guidelines from since 20 years, but it's always contemporary, I think. Incorporate ease of maintenance, cleaning, repairing, and operation of your Ecolodge at the design stage. Develop an inclusive architectural landscape design accessible for all, so considering also disabled people. Consider the possible incidents of climate change and natural catastrophe in your design. More in that period, the climate change adaptation and mitigation measures are crucial for sustainable development. Integrate in the design of the Ecolodge an interpretive center and walking trails, so to connect the experience of visitor with the surrounding area and to enhance the experience and the educational experience, and create an architectural style consistent with ecotourism principle and with the local context, ensuring your Ecolodge convey a very strong sense of place. So I suggest you some key handbook and publication. They date now more than 20 years, but they are always contemporary, and believe me, they're very well developed. The International Ecological Guidelines, also Ecotourism Principle, Practice and Policy for Sustainability, and you can find there all the standard to be respected from your architects and your technical team and staff. So this handbook are very, very, very well developed. I suggest you to take it. Thank you very much for your attention, and enjoy the Ecotourism Network Annual Summit. Thank you very much.